Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to your Monday edition of the TraderMerlin Show. An exciting one out there. All kinds of fun stories and things to talk about today. I have a fun one to tell you about my silver trade. Of course, you guys probably saw the Go EV thing just going nuts again. But the most important piece for the day was Jensen Huang's NVIDIA Keynote speech. Some really interesting stuff came out there, and I thought I would start with that, kind of, set the stage for the future, and then we'll dive into overall markets. We saw crude oil breaking out again. Oh, man. Lots of stuff to talk about. So anyway, let's kick things off. I'm going to start it off with our graphic over here, which says NVIDIA upgrading the future for our 884th show. No, I was not at the conference. I wish I was. If I had the time, I would have gone up there because the things that they're doing are just downright incredible. Now, it's still going on right now. I actually wish that I almost thought about canceling the show, but I have it on pause, and I will continue to watch the presentation that Jensen Huang is giving because he's really... He's doing some very interesting pieces on, I guess, how technology has changed over time, and then this exponential shift that NVIDIA is bringing to the table. And one of the things he talked about was Moore's Law. And he talked about how Moore's Law, every 10 years, things get 10 times as fast every, 5 times as fast in 10 years? I forget Moore's Law. It was so long ago. But he brought up the speed. I know I saw that, Oliver. I've been watching the stock after hours. I'll bring up the chart here in just a second. Let me just real quickly bring it up because I want to make sure that I have the right numbers because it was so long ago that I looked at Moore's Law. I thought it was everything got twice as fast. There we go. Number of transistors in an integrated circuit will double every 2 years with a minimal rise in cost. So double every 2 years. So if you look at that linear progression, obviously you have accelerated growth over time. What Jensen showed was their new chip development, the stuff that they're building, has increased 1,000 times in just 8 years. And they're expecting to get even more done in the coming years. So basically what it's done is turn Moore's laws on its head and said, we're innovating at a far greater pace than historical. And it was interesting to me because it seems inconceivable that you would get twice as much data in through a chip every 2 years. That just seemed crazy to keep on going. It's actually getting faster and faster and faster than that. Yeah, every 2 years. So let me show you a couple graphics, screenshots I grabbed just so you can understand it. If we talk about AI as this groundbreaking technology, of course it's been around for a while. It just all of a sudden hit mainstream with ChatGPT back in 2022. It's like, oh wow, here's a real world application, and then all of a sudden it's really just blown up. And then of course NVIDIA has vaulted from a smaller company to one of the largest in the world. So I wanted to, you have my Google thing in the top corner here blocking some of it, but these are not like small names. These are some of the biggest names, not only domestically, but internationally. Some of the biggest names in the world are using it. And I think there's a misconception that, they need to be a technology firm to be using AI. And it's like, well, no, not necessarily. I mean, this AI that they're talking about, generative AI, can be used for pretty much any application, whether you want to track where your produce is coming as a farmer, or you want to track employee track records and data, all that stuff. Anything can be done with it. So Tom says, computer gets twice as fast every 2 years, and software bloats to 2 times 2 that pace. Yeah, so here is the chart of their new chip. Their new chip is called Blackwell. They unveiled it today, apparently. I'm sure it was leaked out before that. But the Blackwell chip is 5 times faster than their last one, the Hopper chip. So this shows you kind of the progression of growth. And notice the exponential leap. This, for those who listen to the podcast, I know it's kind of hard to see here, or if you're listening to the podcast, you can't see anything. You have 19 teraflops worth of computations in 2016. Volta jumped that to 130 just the next year. So that already is almost a 10x. I'll call it an 8x increase just in 1 year. Then they jumped to 620 teraflops in 2017. So it took them 3 years to get to 620 teraflops. All of a sudden, in 2 years, they went from 630 to 4,000. I mean, that is a phenomenal jump in processing. And then all of a sudden, this Blackwell chip does 20,000 teraflops. And the presentation was fantastic, the way they connected these things and they all linked together. You're like, okay, geek speak Merlin, who cares? Well, what it means is these generative models that people are trying to build out, your open AIs, are going to become much faster to program. A teraflop is you have megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes, petabytes, and it's just an amount of computation, amount of data. And not only did have they increased the amount of data that can run through these chips and basically processing power, like how much can it do in a small window of time? That really is what it represents, right? It's the fast GPU, and it's like after tera is petabyte. So technically, this thing could do 20 petaflops, but I don't even know if they talk in petaflops in the tech world. I'm not that much of a geek, but I'm not sure. One other piece that was interesting is he talked about their new Blackwell system and this new rack-mounted system where you can have it's 208 billion transistors on one of these Blackwell chips. That's insane to think that there's that many points of contact for data to be processed. So when is the flippity flop aisle? Good one. He mentioned when you open up the back of their new rack mount system. So obviously they have these small GPU chips, which they compile together to get high performance units using a variety of NVIDIA components, which of course is where that value is derived for NVIDIA, because you can't just buy the NVIDIA chip and plug it into any other really computer. You kind of need their infrastructure, not only their hardware, but software as well. And of course, NVIDIA will probably start to do a lot more of housing of data centers for people. So you all go through their facilities and their hosting services. When you open up one of these racks, and so basically look at the chip I have here on the screen. So you look at this picture here. This plugs into a circuit board, which could have multiples of these chips. And it's basically what they'll call a blade. And a blade is this kind of slide out piece that sits on a rack. It just kind of goes in and it's just full of all the computational components. Well, you could buy 50, 100 blades for your computer, plug them all into their system, which is kind of mounted in this rack, and ultimately do more transactions than is currently being done in one day in the entire internet. What was just bizarre. They showed the back of their computer and said it can. It says it has a bandwidth to handle 130 terabytes per second. So when you guys are doing, let's say this show right now, I'm streaming using AT&T Fiber. I have a maximum that I'm paying for of 1 gigabyte per second, which is pretty damn fast. Well, this would be 13,000 times faster than that. And from what Jensen said at the presentation, he said that is the aggregate transaction the aggregate bandwidth of the internet combined. And I was like, that was a kind of a fascinating one to me. I'd like to validate that one or verify it, just because that seems like such an unbelievable number. But he's saying that the bandwidth of the internet right now is about 130 terabytes per second, and their one server can do that, which should be really eye-opening, meaning the ability for this rack mount system to process information, whether I'm doing language model AIs, imagine this for the Defense Department and things like that, just the sheer amount of computational power, off the charts, mind-boggling how much faster this has gotten. And they were talking there, they already have another chip under development, which they're expecting to get even significantly higher transactions and computation power. So what does it all mean? It means that systems are going to get faster, more efficient, and do more. And it's while it's super exciting on one hand, I've kind of been emphasizing this point a little bit for our show, is as you look back at your job, what do you do for a paid profession? If you're not trading full-time and earning your money that way, you're working doing something. And to me, I think it would be very important for everybody to look at their job and say, how is this going to impact you? Because there are some jobs that I think are going to be replaced right away with AI, very quickly. And then I think it's going to slowly get into just about every job until we get to the robotics phase. So once we get to the robotics phase, then you'll start to replace jobs that I think many of us would go, no, you need humans for that. No, I think at some point we're going to have, Skynet type of technology where robots will be doing a lot of the tasks that people do. For example, we talked about, I think we talked about it here in the past about McDonald's, Well, McDonald's at some point will simply have robots in the kitchen. There will be, you don't have to worry about your order being incorrect. The robot knows exactly what to do. It's all formulaic. Boom, flips burgers, adds lettuce, slaps on some tomatoes. You hear these nightmare stories about people at fast food restaurants spitting in your food. What's a robot going to do? Get a little extra oil on there? I don't know. They're not going to mess up. They work without taking a break and all that stuff. No healthcare comps. To me, that is one of those logical points to see robots replacing. And then it goes, it just gets further and further from there. It's kind of exciting to me. I actually have a renowned interest in learning more about robotics and AI because there's going to need to be somebody to maintain these robots, take control of them, not control of them, but maintain them, upgrade them, do service repairs. I mean, that could be a pretty big industry going forward. But the presentation that Jensen Huang gave today really drove home the point that it's getting faster and faster. It's not like there's this consistent slope upward of innovation. It's now feels like it's going parabolic because of the amount of computations that these chips can do. All right, Mark's an engineer, I'm hoping. He says, a flop is one floating point operation per second. Ah, that's cool. So a mega flop is 1 million floating point operations per second, and that's a mega flop. We're talking 20,000 teraflops. All right, so just to put that into perspective, if one megaflop is 1 million, I'm going to just do my numbers over here. If that's 1 million, I think I need to get this out here. All right, that's 1 megaflop. So a teraflop is right. I think a teraflop would be 1 billion. Then you add on 20,000 times that. That's how many floating point operations per second this thing can do. That is unbelievable. I mean, that is a huge amount of operations, calculations, whatever you want it to do. To me, remarkable. Anyway, thank you for that one, Mark. Floating point operations per second. I learn something new every day. I try to bring you guys education, and I appreciate the education that you gave me. So it just goes to show that the capabilities, the processing here is getting faster and faster. There was a quote, it's probably going to elude me. I think it was Elon Musk said it recently, something to the extent of it will take AI to know as much information as the average human. And it will take like another 5 years, it will know all the information and knowledge of every human. I was like, oh, now you're getting a little bit scary. Sounds like an almighty failure to me with a description like teraflop. Aww. Oh, I see what you're saying. Like it's a flop. Yeah. Wrong. They really shouldn't use the word flop in there. That does kind of have a weird connotation. All right, let me see. Partner dense will pay 5 times the price for a substandard quality in most cases, not equipment for really. No way. It would not surprise me to see the government actually come at NVIDIA and be like, hey, listen, we get first dibs on this stuff because we need it for defense. We're the government. Who knows? Let's see. Lee says, my question is, can AI take over mining Bitcoin and do it faster and cheaper than Mara or Riot? Great question. I was thinking about this as I was watching this presentation. The answer is yes. So could one of these computers collectively, one of these units, process more transactions than anything that's currently available? The answer is absolutely yes. However, I don't know the cost of these systems. So if I could buy, let's say, 10,000 ASIC miners, would that cost me the same price as one of these? Right? And if the numbers work out, let's say it costs me, let's say it's a $5 million computer, and I can get the same computational power by buying $5 million worth of ASIC miners, I just have more infrastructure issues, then it doesn't really save me much. However, it could be that somebody, Google says a 1 teraflop is 1,000, a megaflop would be 1 million. So a teraflop is a trillion. So I was wrong on that. It definitely could speed up that process. Although I assure you that these systems that NVIDIA is creating, these aren't, $10,000, $20,000 units. These are hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the cost is going to be prohibitive until we get more competition. And then I think you'll start to see these things, the cost of them drop. But yes, it could change the difficulty or the computational power mining Bitcoin. Now, if you're concerned about that, let's say that a bunch of these, some mining firm buys a whole bunch of these new processors, these Blackwells, and starts mining Bitcoin with it. Well, if they do, remember, Bitcoin has an adjustable difficulty rating. So what will happen is the network, the whole Bitcoin network, will see all this extra computational power come in, and the block times are going to get faster and faster. They increase the difficulty of the puzzle to bring it back to 10. So it doesn't matter how much extra mining power there is in Bitcoin. If it went up tenfold between today and tomorrow, you'd see a problem in Bitcoin for a couple of days. I believe it resets every 2 weeks, the difficulty of the puzzle that miners are trying to solve. So if all of a sudden there's a huge influx of these new computers and everybody thinks they have a competitive advantage, they'll just increase the difficulty. So it shouldn't impact the Bitcoin mining at all. The question that I would ask is, could this potentially be something that cracks the algorithm of SHA-256? That is a bigger question that I think I'd need to talk to some experts in the industry about, but it would lead me to believe that it could, because it's just all about, points of attack. And if you can do that much more than anything else, you can attack that code even more and maybe break SHA-256. There's always been that concern in the crypto world that quantum computers will hack Bitcoin, and once you hack it, well, it's useless. My guess is if we start to see a threat to someone hacking SHA-256, they'll simply change the algorithm on Bitcoin because the community will agree to it, and it will go from 256 and double to 512 or 1028, right? It'll double and double, and I think the system will automatically upgrade that way. The puzzle getting tougher to figure out. Yeah, here, let me show you that real quick. Sorry to type, I know it probably came across the screen really loud here, but I'm going to show you this here because you're getting more and more miners, right? Riot Blockchain, Marathon, Hut 8, all these companies are buying more and more equipment to mine more Bitcoin. Well, here is, let's just go the last 3 years. And you can see the difficulty of the puzzle. So this line here represents the difficulty of the puzzle. It's automatic, Mike. It's in the code. So the code will adjust it for the difficulty. So the code's going to see how much transactional power is on the network, and that's readily available. You can see it here. Let me zoom out a little bit. This is showing you the computational power of the entire Bitcoin network is right now 83.94. This should be petahash. Let me look at a different one because it's really cool when they line it up with the price of Bitcoin. Let's check out this one here. Yeah, here you go. And this is going back 3 years. So you can see the blue line here represents the network's difficulty, which again is done by the code. It automatically adjusts. And as we have this big surge up in price, of course, that brings in more miners, but it's been fairly consistent. More miners are coming on board trying to mine Bitcoin. And as that goes up, the mining difficulty increases as well. So they, in this case, Mike, it's not really any specific person. It's automatically done by the code that is software. Remember, the code that is software. The code that is Bitcoin. Right? That's the gist of it. So hope I answered that question. It's just there's a reference point where, I think it's every 2 weeks, the network will say, okay, what's the computational power right now? Oh, it jumped to here, raise the difficulty. So you do get some lags where, like when China shut down, that caused some problems for Bitcoin because all of a sudden, all these miners disappeared. And so the puzzle was really hard with less miners, and all of a sudden it took 12, 13 minutes to mine a block of Bitcoin because you didn't have all the miners there. No, great. Don't be giving me those puzzles, Mark. I'm not doing that one right now. McDonald's and others only need automation, not robots. Speaking as an engineer, robotics, boom. True. They could do automation. Yep, they could have that process automated. It just comes through a conveyor belt, flips, and there comes a lettuce machine. Absolutely right, Tom. They could do it with both. I think we could agree with that one. Hey, Big Ab, good to see you. Yeah, right. How could you be late? Well, that's all right. I understand. You're probably enjoying that sunshine that we've got out there. I'm still not done watching the conference. Like I say, I think I have another 2 hours left of it. I was really engaged with that one. It'll probably be my nighttime viewing today. But what's interesting is the amount of partners, and I think that shows you the scope of all this. And I showed this to people earlier. This is straight from their presentation. I mean, you look at Stellantis down there, largest car, I'm not going to say maker. They just own a ton of car companies. You've got Uber, UPS, the U.S. Army, the Navy, Verizon. I mean, everybody that's major business is looking at this, which, of course, is why we've seen NVIDIA just have a phenomenal run. I mean, and the question now is, does this have a pullback? It would appear to me, just based off what's going on with the presentation and now unveiling all these new products, you kind of would think that there would be a rally up. But remember, this industry operates a lot off buy the rumor, sell the news. That's the trading world, in my opinion. So now that they've unveiled this new Blackwell processor, I almost feel like there's going to be, I actually hope that there's a correction in NVIDIA because I would like to buy some long term. I actually have a friend of mine that works for NVIDIA, and every time I see him, he just turns to me and he goes, buy NVIDIA. He goes, just please do me a favor. He doesn't give me any other information. He talked about the CUDA chips and all that, and he just says, just buy NVIDIA. Just go long. And I'm not long on NVIDIA. I kind of waiting for this pullback, which has just never materialized. Story of my life. All the partners, stocks are going up. Well, and here's the thing, Oliver and others, ultimately we're going to hit by, I'm personally going to be impacted AI in two manners. Number one is, how does it impact my day-to-day living, my life, my consumption of goods and services as a citizen, as a global citizen? The second one is, what's it going to do from trading and investing opportunities? Now, if all of these firms are looking at using AI, whether it's NVIDIA or not, these ones are all working with NVIDIA, but I'm sure that they would gladly look elsewhere if there was better opportunities. What they're trying to do is streamline their businesses and make it more efficient. And as a business owner, there's certain variables that you can control. Labor costs are something that's interesting. You try to hire a good employee as opposed to having 2 or 3 mediocre employees, right? So obviously you're going to pay them more money, but when you look at AI and robotics, what's it going to do to the workforce? It's such a win-win for any one of these employers. Almost any one of these employers would benefit from automation and robotics, whether it's manufacturing of John Deere tractors, whether it's doing AI algorithm processing for Meta, whether it's doing distribution and site design for Netflix. Like, all this stuff can be automated. And when you do that, you remove people's jobs who are, earning $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year, maybe $50,000 a year. You do that in mass, what happens to your bottom line, right? So let's take, for example, Pixar, right? I'm going to just highlight this guy down here, Pixar. I showed you a couple weeks ago what was that website? Damn it. It was done through OpenAI. I can't remember the name of it, but you could type in a scene, and I could upload my picture and say, here's Merlin Rothfeld, have Merlin Rothfeld walking down the Yellow Brick Road, and next to him, I want to have the Cowardly Lion, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and Judy, and put Merlin in their arms, kicking, singing, Follow the Yellow Brick Road as they wander down this Yellow Brick Road to the Emerald City in the distance. And the AI will generate that picture and it will feel like it's a movie. So when you look at Pixar, which is one of the best animation houses in the world, what if Pixar no longer has to have 3D animators? I mean, I've got 2 friends personally that are really good 3D animators, and they're like, the stuff that's coming out is, we're already seeing people kind of being replaced. Because as an animator, they're getting, a couple $100,000 a year. But now all I need is somebody who I can pay $50,000 or $60,000 a year to put the inputs into my generative AI and create the films. There was that strike that went on in Hollywood a couple months back. And I'll tell you, I wasn't a part of that because I'm not an actor. But it would not surprise me to see AI being a major discussion there, because at some point, we may not even have actors. I think I told you this. There's an artist, his name is Drake. He's a popular hip-hop guy from Canada. And someone took Drake's music, uploaded it into an AI program just so you could hear the sound, and it trained AI, and then it said, create a song in the sound of Drake that's about it's cold. It's cold outside or something like that. And it was a huge hit. And Drake's like, wait a minute, that's not my voice. You're using my name, so it's called AI Drake or Drake AI or something like that, pretty soon they'll be able to take Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, you name the actor, Morgan Freeman, upload enough videos so the AI goes, I know exactly where to put the moles on Morgan Freeman's face. I know the voice perfectly. And you could have every movie, doesn't even need an actor anymore. I could have AI write it. So to me, that's crazy. And it's coming. I don't see it changing unless our regulators do something about it. But it's going to be a tough one. I think we're going to see some lawsuits here in the future about how AI is taking someone's identity and creating a character for that. Impersonating Morgan Freeman. Well, if you're going to bill it as a virtual Morgan Freeman, then he should get a royalty check or something like that. And that stuff still hasn't been finalized with AI. Anyway, I'm going down some really strange rabbit holes here, but just trying to think outside the box because AI is getting faster and faster, particularly when I look at the numbers that Jensen was talking about so far in his keynote speech. It is just really just skyrocketing innovation and the speed at which things are processed. Seems like we need a patent on ourselves. Yeah, it'll come. So I look back at one of my favorite albums of all time, and that is Paul's Boutique by the Beastie Boys. So for those of you who might be as old as I am, the Beastie Boys came out with their first album, the one that really blew them up. It's called License to Ill. I believe that was 1986. Great album, but it was more rock and roll because, Beastie Boys they were a punk band before they got into hip hop. So they blew up with License to Ill and it was like this kind of edgy rock, hip hop, rap kind of thing. Their follow-up album was completely different. It was just filled with samples. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of samples on that album. Like every song had probably 20 different samples from the Commodores and the OJs, you name it. Man, James Brown, the Beatles, they were sampling everybody. But at the time, there were no rules against sampling. So, of course, that started all these court cases, and now artists have to pay for sample rights. But at the time, Beastie Boys didn't have to. So they created something that will probably never be done again, that sort of extreme sampling thing, but their laws changed after the fact. We'll probably get to that point here with AI soon, where someone is probably going to create videos of, people, hell, even like myself, and now using my likeness to try to get you to buy some service and sign up for something and steal your money. You're going to get a lot of that. So yeah, we're going to get court cases here soon. It's really interesting. I like it. I think it's fantastic to do the AI stuff, but there needs to be that, payment for identity theft and things like that. Anyway, I'm going on and on and on here. Bard Rock AI made some great medievals. Yes, Bard Rock. Yes, that was cool. That was really cool. As Tom says, there's one out there called Bard Rock. So it's like take any song you can imagine. Like take the most heavy metal song I Am the Man by Anthrax or something. I am the man. And I'll run it through this AI and it comes out like a bard playing it, back in the 14th century and 13th. It's really, really cool stuff. Merlin AI creation, you talked about. The program is called Sora. Thank you. Thanks, Oliver. Yeah, my brain, I got so many things going on in my head right now with Sora. That was really cool. And that's going to be out here really, really soon. A Merlin bot. No, I don't want a Merlin bot. I want to buy a bot. Like I'm already head over heels for it. I tell you, I will be first in line. I will be on the wait list, and I am going to have a bot in my home. There's no way around it. I want one. I'm excited. I cannot wait. Can you imagine all the time you save, people? I probably already went over this, so I'm not going to rehash what I've already said. Worried about AI ads during the run-up to the election. Could be scary. Absolutely. And this, now it may become a question, Lori, of as we get towards this election thing, are the news outlets, are the TV networks going to be responsible for the validity of ads, right? If I take a video and I upload, let's say I upload a bunch of Joe Biden videos and I make him say something that is so like appallingly offensive that it's going to polarize people, and I send that in my ad campaign, and it's false, is, ABC, NBC, CBS, are they going to be responsible for the validity of those things? That's something we'll probably see in the near future as well, because it's going to be easy to slip that stuff by, I think. Right now you have to fact check everything. AI Music Channel, There I Ruined It, does some great. That is my favorite music channel. I love it. If you guys haven't, check that one out. Tom's right. It's called There I Ruined It. It is great. There's one in there where it does Frank Sinatra. I think it's Fly Me to the Moon is the bass song, but then he takes a very vulgar song, you guys might know it, the window to the walls, to the sweat. Yeah, that one. And they overlap those, and you're going, man, that sounds exactly like Frank Sinatra. It's fantastic. Anyway, I love it. It's fun to play around with that stuff. All right, I'm going down rabbit holes. What time is it? Okay, let me get to the show because I got other things I want to talk about. Anyway, the topic for today was AI upgrading the future, and the reason I wrote that is the speed at which they're developing this technology and the adoption that I think is going to happen is exponentially higher than anything I believe I've ever seen in my lifetime. Because computers innovated. I remember I got my first hard drive. My external hard drive was a 30 gig hard drive. And I was like, yeah, man, 30 gigs. Now I've got 30 gigs on thumb drives. I got terabytes on thumb drives. Well, while we've all appreciated that innovation and storing more data, the processing of information, right? The storage is one thing, but processing. Now all of a sudden NVIDIA taking it to a whole nother level, which means the capabilities of what we can do are off the charts. So pretty excited about that. That's I'm going to be watching that one the rest of this week, see how it does after this conference. They were down a little bit in the after hours, but just down 0.90. So let me go to two other things I want to address. You guys are now glued to Go EV because of me. I saw it today too. If you watch the hot list here on TradingView, Go EV was the number one highest volume traded security on the markets today. That's pretty amazing. 108 million shares traded, was more than Tesla. It's rare to unseat Tesla as the most traded stock of the day, but Go EV was up 49% again. Phenomenal day. I'll bring that chart up here. And, it's funny because my buddy called me. He's like, are you going to dump all your stuff right now? I mean, you're up over 100% in just 2 days. I'm like, no. I told you my thoughts on this. I think that if they can make the corner, they can round that corner, then this has a very bright future. So I'm holding on to it. Again, I don't have a ton. I just have 2,500 shares. But yeah, that was a very unexpected move. I thought we might see it flatline here and start to move up. We've got earnings on April 1st, which of course could be dramatic. But what it was today was they received some preferential tax treatment talk from the state of Oklahoma where they can do free trade. So that's kind of a cool piece. So Go EV was great. Now, here's something I've never seen. As you guys know, I've got a whole bunch of silver. And I sell covered calls against positions that I'm in to generate more income and earn a little bit of extra yield. So I had the 2250s call options sold, and I had the 23s. Now my 2250s, they disappeared. I had those are with a Schwab account. And I had over at E-Trade in multiple accounts, I had some silver. And of course, you guys can see here, it closed right here. The closing price that day was $23.03. So, all of my silver should be gone. 100% of it, right? So, imagine my surprise as I'm checking over the weekend. I'm going, that's weird. Options expired, but it's still showing I had 5,000 in one account, 1,000 in another, and 2,000 in another account that was still there. So I had to contact them this morning, and I'm like, hey, listen, I think you guys messed up. That silver should be gone, right? They were in the money by 3 cents. Those should be gone. And so after about 20 minutes on the phone with them, I don't know if this has happened to anybody here. You guys let me know if this has happened to any of you options traders here. But this never happened to me. So it was my understanding those will just automatically execute. They'll automate those shares. Let's say the 5,000, right? I had 5,000 shares of SLV in one account. I sold 50 call options at 23. It closed at 23.03. Therefore, my silver should be gone Monday morning. Instead, it was still there. So I called up. I'm like, you guys messed up. And what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to start selling calls against that position again in case they messed up. And now all of a sudden, I'm naked calls, right? That would be, short calls, and that would not be a good thing. So what E-Trade told me was that on Friday, they get a lot of calls from people that say, do not exercise those. So if you don't do anything, they'll automatically exercise. And in this case, on 5, 6, 7, 8, on 8,000 shares of my SLV, apparently I was selected as the person that sold that contract that did not get exercised, which is bizarre to me because they were 3 cents in the money. Kind of silly to not exercise those unless you don't have the money, which I think might be the reason. So I still have 8,000 shares of SLV, which I sold calls against today. I got it in writing from E-Trade saying, those are yours. These were do not exercise options. So you now are still have your 8,000 in that account, and I sold the 2350s, which were commanding a pretty nice premium, very close to where we're at. Now, we did get a little bit of a sell-off. We talked about there being a pullback on it, which is fine. I'm going to move my line up here. So has anybody had that happen to them? Lori, Lisa, I know you guys are the keep it simple options ladies. Did you have you ever had that happen to you where your shares didn't get taken away? I've never had it happen. That was surprising to me. So right now I have these calls up here at 23.50 for April 19th. If it gets to that price or above, hopefully they'll take it away. That doesn't sound right, because if you sell calls, you take on the obligation to deliver the underlying right. But remember, the person who bought the option from me has the right, but not the obligation. So they contacted E-Trade and said, we don't want to exercise those. If they didn't call E-Trade personally and say we want to don't want those exercised, then they would have automatically snapped the fingers, been done. But for some reason, whoever bought those calls from me didn't want them, which is silly because you're in the money by 3 cents. I don't know. I get it, Margaret. You're still in the money. Makes no sense. It was really, really, really. Well, did I luck out, Oliver? I don't. It was down today, so I didn't really luck out. No harm, no foul. Like if silver was down like 30% today, I'd be like, oh my God, what happened? It was a minor down day for silver, but I just thought I'd share that with you guys because that to me was very bizarre. If you buy the calls, you have the right, but not the obligation. I don't have to take delivery if I don't want to, but I've been trading 27 years now. No, options I have not been trading that whole time, obviously, and I've never had that happen to me. Cool. I mean, it's fine. It's just I had to spend 20 minutes getting clarification from staff there to make sure everything was okay. It was pretty weird. Oh, what else we got? Interesting. There was a time or two where I would like to keep my shares. Yeah, either way, it would have been better if like silver had gone up to 23.75 and he's like, oh, don't exercise those, and I keep 75 cents. Ba-boom. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, didn't happen. Okay, so there was that. I wanted to share those two things. So I got to the Go EV out of the way. We talked about my silver trade as well. As an option trader, I have never had a broker surprise me in my favor. Yeah. I mean, technically it wasn't, at the time it was in my favor, but this morning silver was down. So it opened higher and then sold off. So that was just bizarre. I had to share that with you because, just when you think you've seen it all of a sudden the market surprised you. So for whatever, and what was weird was I had other shares of SLV that were taken away, which was bizarre. Like my Schwab got taken away, some of my E-Trade ones got taken away, but in these 3 accounts, not one got touched. I was like, what? How do you discern which ones get touched and which ones get executed? It was bizarre. Anyway, hope you learned something there. And if it ever does happen to you, I recommend you do this. If you've sold calls against your position and you're in the money and your shares are still in your account, call them and ask for writing that this is okay. Because what could happen is it could be a clerical error and they forgot to remove it from your account. So now you go to sell calls against it, right? And I think I'm covered because I got the underlier. But you may not have the underlier anymore. So if it really rips, you could be on the hook for some serious money. So just contact them and make sure that it's all as legit and okay. It was a bizarre situation. Okay, let's go to our top markets. And real quick, we'll talk with Bitcoin and I'll go to a couple of your questions. Obviously Bitcoin's still struggling. It's no big deal. I kind of anticipated, been saying, I thought there'd be a pullback coming. The question is just how low. We're down 11% from the peak to its lowest point we established on Friday for the futures. Let me go to the actual spot. That's a better way to do it. Let's go to our spot market here. Sorry, as I scroll through all this. Where'd my crypto portfolio go? I just reorganized everything, and there's my crypto. Okay, so Bitcoin, BTC. Come on, Merlin. There we go. I just want to get the percentage off the top. So from your peak to your bottom, we established on Sunday night. We're down 12.32% on Bitcoin. It rallied a little bit today, but again, that's a pullback would be normal. And I find it humorous because I've had friends go, man, Bitcoin's crashing. What are you going to do? It's like, crashing? We're down 12%, right? Like I'm up like 100% in 2 months. and you're worried about 12% correction, I'm pretty sure that every single person in this room would love to have 100% gain and then complain about a 12% pullback. I'm not complaining. I'm enjoying it. 12,000 incoming could go as low as 45K though. Yeah, it could go to 45. It could, but I don't think 12,000 is coming, Brian. You're crazy. Something major bad would have to happen for like, yeah, that I don't think you're gonna see 12,000 come. But if it does, I'll be buying more. I'm buying more of that bad boy. So that was your worst performer. Was Bitcoin. I'm not that worried about it. Is what it is. Now, one of the questions that came through, let me just get this because it was just emailed in. So let me read this one from BM Zadegan. Hopefully I pronounced that last name right there, BM. Sorry about that. I am waiting for a short squeeze on MicroStrategy. Do you know why MicroStrategy dropped over 14% today? Yeah, because Bitcoin's down. Remember, it's like this double leveraged Bitcoin thing. We had the conversation with John last Monday. You know, MicroStrategy, let's bring up that chart here real quick for you. You know, if Bitcoin's down from its peak to where it's at right now, let's see, that's a 20% swing for MicroStrategy, and Bitcoin's was 12. So it's been double the move up. It's going to be close to double the move down. So I don't think there's anything wrong with this. It's just following suit. When do I think the short squeeze is going to come? Well, I think that's part of why you saw this move up. I mean, obviously there was heavy short interest on MicroStrategy, and it was down at $500 in January, $400. And we just broke 1,700. So clearly, Michael Saylor sold more shares. Did he sell shares to buy more Bitcoin? I think that's what he was doing. It's really funny. He doesn't want to have BlackRock have more than him. It's really this pissing match between these two behemoths in the world. So anyway, I'm not concerned about why MicroStrategy dropped so much today. It's down 15%. Big deal. It's just following what Bitcoin does. Now, look, if Bitcoin drops another 10% from here, then I'm going to assume mentally that MicroStrategy is going to drop 20. That's a 2-to-1 factor. Chad says, if I call, do not exercise, I want to close my purchase for the profit versus losing that profit, but maybe they won't let you do this. Well, you could just say, I don't want delivery. And apparently that's what's happened with my options. That in my mind, they threw away 3 cents. And if you look at SLV today, and let's look at just SLV, and I'll show you the 5-minute time frame here so you can see what happened. Unfortunately, I wasn't on top of it because this morning it was up around 23.12. Well, I could have sold the 23.50s against my position if I wanted to and gotten a lot more premium. Instead, when it was down around 22.90, it was 22.90 when I sold my calls against this one. So yeah. Mike, I don't know. He says, any idea what happened to those marijuana stocks? Yeah, a lot of them are ripping. I don't know. I haven't really been following what's been going on in the cannabis space because it's just been, I'll be honest, it's been really boring. Let's look at MJ here real quick. Right, so you had this couple-day rally in cannabis stocks that's been phenomenal. It doesn't seem like much, but again, these are big percentage gains. The MJ ETF was up 16.35%, but you look at Kronos was up 6% today, TLRY, the whole sector really ripping. I don't know. I'm really not sure why they're rallying. All right, I got to get through this. I'm going to be running out of time here today. Russell 2000, that was your 7th place finisher. Again, chart-wise, I don't see anything here that's noteworthy. We've got, obviously a little sell-off here. You could be using this 50-period moving average. I think that's what I've got on here. Is that a 50? Yeah, 50-period moving average on this as your kind of support line as it's trending up, but really still looks good. You're making higher highs, higher lows, a little bit of a pullback here, so I'm not too worried about that one. The 10-year stalling right at those same highs we've been at since last week, which is about 4.33, so I would say that's really not that big of a deal either. You obviously have gold, which is having a little bit of a pullback. Same, we kind of expected this with silver. Someone emailed me and asked a couple days ago whether this was a bullish flag formation, and it's tricky to call it a bullish flag, but typically what you get with a bullish flag is a strong impulse move like you see there, and then you get a channel that drifts down in price. Let me get that in here. One sec. And so you can see the channel here on gold. It's okay. Is that still a bullish flag? In my opinion, it is. I think it is still a bullish flag pattern. And what does it mean for you people who like technicals? It means that this distance right here, the pole, when it breaks to the upside, this should be used as your measuring object, which, let's say we break tomorrow to the upside for gold, it means that it's forecasting gold getting up to somewhere around 2350. So there you go. But all in all, I think it looks good. It's just a little bit of a reprieve. And typically when you get those big run-ups, you get the pullbacks, right? No biggie there. Dollar index, you had slight increase up for the dollar index, which is good. We're getting back above that moving average line. You do have an issue right here where we had that sell-off happen on the 6th of March. So you get about that 103.80. A little bit of hesitation on this price chart. However, we've talked about this before. It's that ripple effect where the first initial waves are really big and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Everything is compressing here in that dollar index. I expect there at some point in the near future to be a pretty big breakout. I think it'll have a real big rip. My assumption would be to the upside. All right, podium time. S&P 500. What can you say? Looks great. There's nothing technically here other than go long. It's just, it's about as beautiful as you can make it on a price chart. That moving average is perfectly smooth, same distance away. There's been no real pullbacks. At some point there will, but right now just stay long. NASDAQ, 0.96% gain today. Same picture as the S&P, although I see more weakness in the NASDAQ, more hesitation. I looked at buying some puts directionally today for the NASDAQ. I looked at two different ones. I was actually looking at going to the end of the week, as I was expecting there to be a pullback, but I did not find it to be an attractive valuation for me. There wasn't enough meat on the bone, if you will, for the options I was looking at, and then I looked out for a couple of months and didn't pull the trigger. But we'll wait here. If we get down below this red line I've got in the screen, I'll make sure you look at the QQs. Right, we tiptoed below this on Friday, but didn't close below it. If we get a close below 43.33, then I'll consider building a position short. But right now, I'm not. And lastly, best one. This should be concerning. Right, crude oil, 1.38% move to the upside. We broke out of that. I thought we'd have a little bit of a hesitation here right at $81, which we did. We broke through that today. Now you just kind of have to look back off to the left and say, where is any really major area of supply? I don't see anything up until you get to about $89, and even that's not the freshest supply level. So I don't see much to stop crude oil from its rally. And of course, you guys know my story. I sound like a broken record. I mentioned January 1st that this will be the most important component for our markets this year. If this keeps on going up, then what we'll witness is that rate probability. And let's just take a peek at that one real quick, since we do have a rate announcement this week. We got multiple announcements this week. We have five rate announcements happening this week for U.S. markets. Crazy. Well, for global markets. So let me bring up the countdown page here so we can see what the expectations are, how they have shifted. Do we think it's time to sell render? I don't think so. I'm long-term, Brian. I'm basically holding until November of next. Actually, it'll probably be October of next year. So I don't care what happens in crypto. I'm going to continue to hold to that. Here's the forecast for this week. There's a 1% chance we get a 25 basis point cut. Not going to happen. 99% we are going to stay right where we're at. That's okay. We pretty much knew that. My assumption was that if we are going to get a rate cut, it would happen in June or July, but I think that this inflation issue is going to push that further back. Here's what the numbers. Right now, it looks pretty certain that the May meeting, so May 1st, 94% staying right where it's at. June. Okay, June is where the consensus appears to be diverging. It looks like there is a 56.5% chance of a rate cut happening in June, which would make sense. That was kind of what I was anticipating it. But I can tell you this, if this continues to move on up, and this number here, which is the 10-year bond, continues to move on up, then we will not see that happen. We will probably see this change to a much higher probability of it staying the same until we get inflation totally under check and we get housing fixed. I don't see them doing any rate cuts. All right, I got to run. I know I got a bunch of questions here. J-Beth says, I'm a help desk supervisor at Fidelity Investments, and we get those calls a lot. Sometimes people might do funky stuff for tax costs. Yeah, I knew that fundamentally, whoever buys an option has the right but not the obligation. Whereas if you're the seller, you're obligated, right? So if I sold those calls, I'm obligated to give up no matter what my SLV at 23 bucks. You know, let's say I sold the $23 calls and silver's at 22.95. The buyer of that call option can call Fidelity or E-Trade and say, I want to take delivery of it, even though it's below market value. Now, they'd be stupid to do, but that's their prerogative. They have the right, but not the obligation. They could exercise that at any moment, at any price. I just never heard of somebody not accepting the option when it's in the money. Like, that's kind of silly, even though it was only 3 cents. Keep in mind, it was 3 cents, but all told, I had 8,000 that didn't get exercised. Well, 3 cents times 8,000 is $240. So essentially, he gave me $240 for free. All right, cool. Good for you, bud. Maybe he just didn't want to lock up his capital. I'm not sure. I don't know. Okay, let's look at what's happening for the next couple days. Let me bring up our Forex factory here. Earnings-wise, there's not a lot. Wednesday, we start to get some decent earnings. But here is your calendar for Forex this week, or actually just all markets. You can see Monday, what do we have? Well, we have a rate announcement that's going to happen here in a couple of hours for Australia. You've got the tentative numbers here for Japan, which I haven't heard anything on those yet, but those are the 2 announcements happening today. Tomorrow, we start to get a little bit of action with the United States. You can see here you've got building permits, housing starts coming out for the U.S. That's pretty much it for tomorrow, and you have some Canadian CPI numbers, and that's really it. So Margaret says they would be at a loss now. Well, they didn't know that at the time, unless maybe they did, Margaret. Maybe they did know that silver was going to tank today, like we thought it was. Well, not tank. Well, we looked at that chart on Friday, and you guys are going shooting star, big rally, probably going to have a pullback. No big deal there. So anyway, all right, guys, that's going to do it for me. I'm going to have, who am I having on? Bill Addis on Wednesday. So we're after the FOMC announcement, we'll have Bill on the program, talk about bond markets, talk about yield, talk about the unwritten stuff they don't talk about on the Fed announcements. If you have anything in particular you would like me to discuss on tomorrow's show or Thursdays or Fridays or questions for Bill, do me a favor, send them on in. You can email me at the name on the screen here, which is TraderMerlin@gmail.com. And I'll be happy to get to all those. The best way to do it, though, is just put your comments down below any of the YouTube channels or any YouTube videos. I have 2 questions I meant to get to today, but I just did not have the time to do it, so I will save it for tomorrow's show. All right, so thanks, everybody. Send in your comments, feedback, questions. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.